Good evening. Welcome, welcome. So tonight I'm going to continue on the series of the Eightfold Path. This is the last in a series. The first talk was about how the Eightfold Path is a training that we could follow to diminish and eliminate the sources of suffering. Greed, hatred, and delusion can be uprooted with the Eightfold Path. And then the Eightfold Path, as the name suggests, has 8 elements. And these 8 elements are put into 3 different groups, buckets, trainings. Often given as ethics, wisdom, and mental development. So I did ethics, and last week was wisdom, and this week is mental development. The last one's the Eightfold Path. Usually I don't like to clump so much stuff into one single talk, but in another setting I was requested to do this series, and I don't know, it's kind of good for me. I kind of enjoyed okay, let's look at these things more from the 10,000 foot view rather than the worm's eye view or something like this. So to kind of look at these factors a little bit more the big picture. So it's perfectly fine if you don't know what the Eightfold Path is. I'm just going to talk about these 3 elements that are in there. It's right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. And I'm using this word right. It's not this moralistic right and everything else is wrong. It's more like if you're thirsty and you want to drink some water, it's helpful to have a glass or cup or mug. Not so helpful to have a fork if you wanted to drink some water. So we could say that a cup, glass, mug is right and a fork isn't. So it's more like, what's the most helpful? What's the most appropriate? What's the, I like this, maybe most helpful. So right is sometimes gets translated as wise, as a way to just get us away from this idea of right versus wrong. But I learned it this way is right, and it just comes out of my mouth this way very often. I've just, for all these decades of practice, it's just still comes out that way. So I'll probably say both are right and wise. And now that I have this cup in my hand, I'm going to take a glass of water. So we could say right effort, which is the wise effort, which is the first factor I'm going to talk about this evening, runs through all the other path factors. And not only does it run through the path factors, it runs through so much of our life. That is, if we want to make this movement from aspiration or being inspired to transformation, actually having a difference, then there's some energy that needs to get put into the system, so to speak. We have to apply some energy. We have to apply some effort. If our spiritual practice or anything in our life really is to be anything more than just thoughts. Because there might be a way in which we hear about the Eightfold Path, we hear about Buddhist practice, it's like, oh, okay, that sounds nice. And then don't do anything about it. Then it's just something that sounds nice. And the transformation that's possible doesn't happen. And this is not uncommon for a lot of people to start in their practice. It used to be reading books, but now it's probably listening to podcasts or something like this, or an app on their phone maybe. And we used to call these a bedside Buddhist. They just read a lot of books and get inspired, and then just read the next book, and then the next book, and there's no end, right? There's no end to these things you can do. And it's not just about Buddhist practice, it's about everything. eating better, going to the gym, all these things that we know or we think that we should do or would like to do. It requires some energy, some effort if we really want there to be a shift, a change. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. So, because I would say actually without effort, then our life is just more just following the habits of our life, going down the path of least resistance, and then maybe the habits lead us to a place where we want to go, and maybe they don't. But if we want to change them, it requires some effort. So one way that we might understand right effort, wise effort, is this classic teaching that we find in the suttas, that right effort has 4 elements. I like to remember them as PACK, P-A-C-K. I need a lot of mnemonics with all these lists, right? So the first part of right effort, so it's not just like, apply yourself and strive and get it done. I mean, that would be great, right, if it were that simple, but it's not always so straightforward. Like, well, apply effort where? Like, doing exactly what? And so PACK, P-A-C-K, first is prevent. Prevent what's unhelpful from arising, if you can. An example like this is maybe it's late at night and you need to sleep. It's time for you to sleep. But then you have this idea, I'll just check my email one last time. And you get your phone, and then and then this, and then that, and blah, before you know it, half hour, an hour, hour and a half. So this idea of prevent is you might feel this feeling like, maybe I'll just check my email one more time. And maybe you just put the phone down. Because just recognizing that, before I go to sleep, maybe it's not good for me to be looking at my phone, creating a to-do list, or whatever it might be that is agitating before we're trying to go to sleep, for example. So this idea of prevent is just to have the wisdom to know, if I want to sleep well, I'm not going to do things that are agitating right before sleep. If I want to have more freedom, then those things that cause constriction, that cause delusion, that cause all the things that get in the way of freedom, as best we can, we prevent them from arising. And then the A is abandon, because sometimes they arise anyway. Sometimes you find yourself with your phone, this has happened to me, I thought, I better take care of this before I go to sleep. And oh my goodness, it's terrible, because then this leads to that, which leads to this, and I better look at that, and and blah, and then all this kind of stuff. So the abandon is when you recognize, this isn't helpful. Can we put it down? Can we stop? When you find yourself in something that's just not helping you have the life you want to have. This is not easy. Because so often we just want to keep on doing what we're doing. And maybe part of what we're doing, why we're doing it, is because we want to be numb. We want to disconnect from the stress, from the agitation. There's this way in which we want to kind of just be on the surface. But to apply a little bit of effort requires that we dig a little deeper in some kind of way. So it's not always easy. But it starts with just this recognition that, can we set the intention? These things that we know that are not helpful. I mean, right, if it were easy, there would not be an obesity epidemic. There would not be drug addicts who don't want to be drug addicts. Right, if it were easy to stop, then we would have done it already. But this isn't about just as hard as you can, striving, pushing. It's not about that. Because this striving and pushing is just another way in which there's some suffering that's showing up in the world. And so this wise effort includes balance. So instead of striving as hard as we can, it has ease and spaciousness with it. And this is a practice. How do we do that? How do we move forward in a way that we want to move forward without pushing, but also without disconnecting? And I know for me, like earlier in my life, my professional life, academic life, I just found myself kind of like on or off. I was like striving so hard or completely like disengaged in some kind of way. So this has certainly been a practice, like how to apply gentle pressure. I don't know if pressure is the right word. Gentle effort. Gentle effort. And maybe I'll offer as an example, just in the same way with a mindfulness practice, and I'm going to talk about mindfulness in a moment, but with mindfulness of the breath, we set the breath as the anchor, and then the mind drifts away because that's what minds do. And then we just very gently, simply come back to the breath. We don't like pounce on the breath and punch the breath or anything like this. It's just the mind drifts. We notice, oh yeah, I'm over here. And we just come back. So effort is like this. It's a simple, gentle, just coming back. It doesn't matter how many times we have to come back. It doesn't matter. But the intention is just to come back. So, wise effort. Pack, P-A-C-K, prevent, abandon. And the C is to cultivate. Cultivate what is helpful. I was just talking about mindfulness, that's an example of cultivating. But if you want to be practicing with speech in a way that's like supports healthy relationships, and you said, okay, I'm going to cultivate this. I'm going to maybe recognize what are some of my triggers in which I find myself lashing out or speaking unwisely. And say, I'm going to cultivate something here in particular because it'll support my life to go a direction that I'd like it to go. So C is cultivate those helpful, wholesome things that are not present to help make them be present. And then the K is keep. Those helpful things that are already there, just maintain them, keep them there. If you have a regular practice, a meditation practice, coming to a meditation center, and you're finding these helpful, well, to keep on doing them. It's so easy to think like, oh, I feel better now, so I'm going to drop these things. We so often to do that, but here, it's like, okay, let's just maintain those things. So, wise effort. Prevent those things that are not helpful from arising. If they've already arisen, abandon them. And if you find yourself not with things that are helpful, cultivate helpful things. And then keep those things that are helpful around. So this kind of neat and tidy in the way that the Buddhists talk about this. Of course, it doesn't show up neat and tidy in our lives like this. But it can be really helpful to just even think about, well, what is helpful? What isn't helpful? So this idea of what is helpful and what isn't helpful, that's part of where the next factor comes in. And that's mindfulness. If wise effort, right effort is about like letting go of the entanglement and supporting release or freedom, if we could say that's about what wise effort is about, then we could say, right, mindfulness is about, well, noticing what is entangling and what is it that leads to freedom. How do I know when I'm entangled? What does it feel like? What does it look like? What is the experience? Because it doesn't matter if you know everything about right mindfulness, P-A-C-K, if you don't ever notice when you're lost in things that are not helpful. Or you don't even notice when you're experiencing things that are helpful. And allow yourself to savor those moments, to really experience those moments. So mindfulness, we could think of, I'm thinking of it as like a headlamp. That has on your head. Maybe a flashlight. A headlamp seems more fun though, but just because you have your hands are free, and I associate it with hiking. Whereas a flashlight sometimes can be work. Trying to get things from behind the refrigerator or something like this. So there's this way that mindfulness naturally follows from effort. Right? Why is effort, we could say, in this list of the Eightfold Path? Because we can't prevent what we don't notice, or we can't abandon what we don't recognize, and we can't cultivate. If we forget, it's even possible to forget to cultivate, and we can't keep what we don't even see what's there. So mindfulness, in one of its classic teachings, has a number of domains in which we can rest our attention. And the reason why we have different domains is because it's really for our entire life, but sometimes it's helpful to call out specific domains because we might find ourselves just bringing mindfulness to the places that feel the most comfortable and neglecting to notice things that are uncomfortable. Those times in which we spoke harshly to our partner or our kids or coworker. And then we tend to kind of forget about those. Or the times in which we are doing something that's unhelpful. So these 4 classic domains, I'm saying classic, this is preserved in the ancient teachings. So it's not exactly how we would divide up our experience today. We would probably use different words, but thousands of years ago, they had a different idea of the human experience. So the first one is mindfulness of the body, which we do a lot of here, like at IMC. I don't do guided meditations here on Monday nights, but often when I am doing guided meditations in other settings, then I'm often, almost always, guiding people to just be mindful of their bodily experience, including the breath, the sensations of breathing. And part of the advantage of that is because it's happening here and now. And the breath and the body are tangible. It's more like, we can feel them, literally. Sometimes you can put your hand on your chest to help with mindfulness of the breath, just to connect with it. So that's the first domain. The second domain is feeling tone. There's something pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant or unpleasant. And sometimes this is helpful. Sometimes it's oh my gosh, what's happening? It's just confused. We feel a little bit lost, and it can be helpful to say, this is unpleasant. And just notice it's unpleasant without having to attach a label to it, figure out what's happening in the mind, find it in the body. Sometimes it's really helpful. This is unpleasant. And there's a way in which that kind of simplifies everything down to, oh yeah, this is unpleasant. And then you'll notice the next beat, the mind wants to say, no, I don't want things that are unpleasant. This is human. This is what all humans do. And then the third domain is mind states. What's going on in the mind? Is there this sense of no, get this away from me? Or is there a sense of, I need more. I just need more of everything. I need more freedom. I need more time. I need more space. I need more food. I need more everything, right? There's this way in which we can find ourselves just filled with this sense of lack, and we're just trying to find more and more and more. Or maybe there's a mind state that feels really appreciative, full of gratitude. The other day I went hiking at this place, and a friend of mine who doesn't live in the area was here, and I was showing the area to her. She had never, as I said, been here. And I was just feeling it's so great to be here in California. Because my friend who lives in a cold place kept on saying, I can't believe this is January. just can't believe it. She's taken off all these warm jackets and all this stuff. But I just feel so grateful here in the Bay Area. There are so many beautiful places to hike. There are so many places to be outside if you want to, that are accessible and easy. So I was just filled with gratitude. And I just noticed how I was just appreciating everything. Like, oh, a banana slug. Look how cute they are. This kind of feeling, just everything. So happy for my hiking boots. I just love these boots, just this kind of mood, right? So this mind state. We can also have mind states that are like maybe spacious and filled with gratitude and appreciation. That can be one of the things that when it's there, we can kind of like maintain as part of wise effort. Because it helps us to not be so tight and stuck on everything that's wrong. There are things that are wrong that are happening, of course there are, but there's also things that are right. And so often we're just looking at the problem things. So there's 4 domains for mindfulness: body, feeling tone, which pleasant, unpleasant, neither pleasant nor unpleasant, shortcut, neutral, so pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. 3rd is mind states, just general attitude or mood or orientation, we might say. And then the 4th one, it gets translated in so many different ways. I'll use the word pattern, some patterns that we have. The word is dharma, but this word dharma turns out to mean all kinds of different things in different ways. And this 4th domain is a lot of the Buddhist teachings get put in there. But as a big categories, for those of you who are familiar with this, I'll say like 7 factors of awakening. So factors of awakening. And then hindrances, things that are getting in the way of awakening. Like these are 2 different patterns which we might find. But we could also look at this word patterns in a more like habits that we have. Things that we experience over and over again. So these domains of mindfulness, to even like notice some of these patterns that we have. So mindfulness is like the headlamp that helps us with where to apply our effort. And we're applying effort so we can find more freedom, so we can make this shift from aspiration to transformation. And then when we apply some effort, and again, it's wise effort. I'm not meaning striving, bearing down all the time. Sometimes that can be helpful, but I think as a society we do a lot of striving in this sense of attain, you have to do more. So often we bring that to our meditation practice. So I'm not going to emphasize that. Sometimes it's appropriate, but effort is often more of a gentle effort, consistent but gentle. So if we bring this gentle, consistent effort to our mindfulness in any domain, doesn't matter which one, then there's some settledness that'll happen. It'll happen naturally. The mind just starts to get collected, starts to be this unification, less distraction. And there's just this settling down and unifying that's really pleasurable. It's kind of a sense of like, here, just here. And there's a way that you can feel like really embodied and pleasant. You might have this experience similar like this when you're doing one of your favorite activities, gardening, cooking, walking, hiking. This sense of when there isn't this strong sense of like, okay, I have to fix this, I have to do that, but instead just enjoying adding the spices at the right time and just the feeling of being in the kitchen with, if it's enjoyable for you, tools that you like, and I don't know, maybe you're going to make a meal that is somebody's favorite meal and your love for them is getting expressed through that cooking. Something like that, that feeling of this feeling undistracted. Sometimes dance can have a way with this, playing musical instruments, being part of a musical ensemble of some sort. There can be this, just this sense of settledness, collectedness, and just doing what one is doing. It's one way we can understand this collectedness, this unification. It also arises in meditation. It's a way in which there's as less and less, I'm using the word distractions, but it could also be some of those quiet, maybe even not so obvious way in which we have these leanings towards wanting to do something, or we're pushing away, we don't want something, and we have this attitude of I'm using the word attitude, but maybe it's more like a mind state or attitude, like I want something different. And so when there's that mind state of something different, we're having an experience, and then we're also imagining something else that we want. And it's this little, having this kind of going back and forth, oh, this thing is happening, but I want that thing to happen. No, this is still happening, I'm not having that thing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when this wish for that other thing just kind of softens, goes away, and you're just here with your experience. And this experience, usually when this happens, is pleasant. Just finally like, yeah, here, with this, whatever it might be. And we can intentionally cultivate it. This would be one of the wise efforts. Mindfulness of breathing, metta practice. Sometimes we can do it just with being mindful of being mindful, the experience of awareness, just resting with that sense of awareness again and again and again. Just the mind wanders and we just keep on coming back. Mind wanders, we keep on coming back, and then the mind starts to wander less. And we're just with the mind more and more and more. Maybe it wanders a little bit and comes back. This usually takes time. It's not, it's most common, well, I shouldn't say most common because I haven't interviewed everybody about this. I'll say it's pretty common that the first time people really experience this collectedness and the pleasure and ease that arise with it is on a retreat. When there's this meditation session after meditation session after meditation session, just the mind just really starts to get more and more collected. And so this collectedness, this unification, this non-distractedness is not just for its own sake, even though it can be a powerful experience to finally feel like a sense of rest. We can really see clearly then. So this headlamp of mindfulness, if there's some concentration there, so we're not distracted, then we can see the headlamp. We can see what we can't see when we're busy. In the same way, if you want to look for birds and you have binoculars, it's easier to just be looking instead of, kind of like looking all around. That's right, it's hard to find the birds, for example. So concentration helps with the mindfulness, which helps with insight, we're the Insight Meditation Center. So this insight about seeing that things are changing. Everything's changing. There aren't exceptions. There's time frames that are different, but things are changing. And when we see that in a really deep way, not in an intellectual way, but in a deep way, then there's a part of us that does some letting go. And this letting go brings more freedom and ease. With wise effort and mindfulness and concentration, we also start to have the insight into, oh yeah, there's this real sense of things just aren't quite right. I'm always looking for things to be better. And then nothing ever seems to be a lasting source of happiness. There's something's pleasurable and I might feel happy, but then it goes away. And then we start to see how much we've been searching our whole lives for finally a place where all the ducks are lined up and they stay lined up forever. And we start to realize, oh, that doesn't exist. It's not possible. It never will exist. When we start to recognize that in some deep way, then there will be this type of letting go. But it's not just hearing somebody like me say it, you have to have this experience. You have to be looking to fix everything that's difficult and then realize, oh my gosh, as soon as this gets solved, there's another problem and another problem, you could spend your whole life, your entire life is just one long to-do list. But instead what's being pointed to here is just allow maybe collectedness, so that we could see clearly the more subtle ways in which we've been searching for ease, searching for freedom, subtle ways that we've been agitated that we didn't even notice, and let those go. And then the last classic insight with effort and mindfulness and concentration allows us to see there isn't a self that's orchestrating all of this in the way that we imagine. There isn't this core, stable entity at the center of everything. Instead, it's just a whole collection of experiences that just are happening. It feels like there's a center there, but when we look for it, we won't find it. And again, you don't have to believe me on this. This is an encouragement to maybe bring some curiosity about that to yourself with your own practice, your own experience. And with these 3 insights into the changing nature, unsatisfactory nature, and that there isn't this permanent core essence at the center that's directing things or owning things or something like that. This deep letting go allows for this shift in our way that we experience the world. This deep shift that allows the problemness out of so many things to just drain away. It doesn't mean everything's totally different. It just means they stop being problems. They're just what's happening. And we take care of what needs to be taken care of in a way that doesn't have agitation associated with it, but instead in a way that it's oh, this is what's next, okay. So the Eightfold Path, these 8 elements, broken into 3 trainings, are a way to help us find these insights, to help us find this greater freedom, this ease. And tonight I talked about the last training, effort, mindfulness, and concentration. The whole list, and those are the last 3 of the 8. The whole list of the 8 is view and intention. Noticing suffering and noticing the ending of suffering is view. Intention is just choosing to turn towards what reliably brings more ease and away from what reliably brings suffering. That's the first training, wisdom. The second, ethics, speech, action, and livelihood. Saying speech that brings ease not only to ourselves but to others. The obvious ones, not lying, but things that are timely and beneficial and kind action. Not killing, not stealing. Being careful with our sexual energy so that we don't cause harm. Not taking intoxicants. I missed the fourth one. Oh, speech. And then livelihood. Not with the things that we do in our life, not causing more and more harm. View, intention, speech, action, livelihood, effort, mindfulness, concentration. The Eightfold Path is a way to bring freedom, more and more freedom. So may you find, maybe I'll say one thing I appreciate about this Eightfold Path. I said them in order, but that's just an order in which they're said. It just touches all areas of our life. So you can start wherever it's easiest. Just start somewhere. It doesn't have to be anywhere in particular. Just choose whichever things feels compelling or interesting and something you want to work on. Don't feel like you have to do all 8 at the beginning and just start with that or only do that or something like this. So may you find your way with Eightfold Path, that you might find more peace, ease, and freedom. Thank you. And now I'd like to open it up to see if there's some comments or questions.
So the Dharma requires a lot of effort. How do you make right effort without striving too hard?
Then you become sensitive to suffering, because when you're striving too hard, that's more suffering. And when you feel like, oh my gosh, this is awful, then there's a feeling like, okay, maybe there's too much striving here. This is definitely a practice, and it's something that took me time to learn. Because so used to, and certainly like how many podcasts are there out there and books about like how to do more? You know, there's this real sense of like push and do more. But implicit in that push and do more is this sense of like everything you're doing is wrong or whatever you're doing isn't good enough. And that's not the way to more freedom. So this definitely is a practice to notice when the suffering is there. And then maybe I'll say, it's not all pleasant, right? So just because it's unpleasant doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. But maybe a guide for maybe something that's unpleasant is, are we learning something from this unpleasantness? And so sometimes the effort is unpleasant. Sometimes it is leading to suffering. But if there's a feeling like, oh yeah, I'm learning something here. This is, I'm understanding something about myself or my motivations or something like that, then that's the way forward. Is this helpful?
No, it's just that I have a habit of lying to myself about things like that. Like, oh, I'm growing here, but in reality, I'm probably, I guess has any more awareness or.
So say that you lie to yourself about, oh, I'm growing here, when in fact...
Yeah, I mean, so sometimes I think I'm growing and learning and becoming more enlightened, but I'm probably just striving too hard. Mm-hmm. So I guess with time comes awareness, more practice comes more awareness. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and then here's the bad news. That often what happens is that, I speak for myself here too, just pushed and pushed and pushed and strived and strived and strived until I just kind of just thought, oh my God, this is awful. I just can't do it anymore. And then there's this kind of giving up, like, oh, this is awful. I'm not going to do this anymore. And so there's a certain surrender that happens, and then when that happens, then something new opens up. But you can't tell yourself, like, okay, I'm going to surrender now and it'll be fine. You have to, all of us have to find that for ourselves. So it's definitely experiential. So you might be on part of the path where you're still learning what your limits are and what striving is and stuff like this. It's part of the path. Anybody else have a comment or question?
One thing that I had a question about, which came up during the mindfulness part, was just that can we be aware, mindful of latent tendencies?
So I would say by definition we can't, because I'm just saying latent is there. But we don't, it turns out to be okay, because they express themselves, they get expressed sooner or later. As soon as, whenever the conditions are right, they come up. So I think that that's what I would say using my logical mind, is that by definition, not so much. Anybody else have a comment or question? Maybe back there.
Could you repeat the abandon part of the pack?
Oh, so if you find yourself in the midst of doing something that's just unhelpful, can you stop?
Great. Thanks.
I guess, do you have advice on the abandon piece? I know for myself, sometimes it's like I get hooked on something, and then it's like it feels like continuing to be hooked feels better than like settling and becoming aware. Because when that happens, there's like a realization of like, I don't know, maybe like the shame or the like, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and there's like, I don't know, a flood of judgments. So it's almost like the abandon piece. It's like something I really struggle with once I get caught in something.
Yeah, thank you. This is such a good point. Yeah. Because often, well, let's say this. So you even said that you don't want to, that you don't want to stop doing it, or maybe be aware of it, because then there's this flood of shame, or like, oh my gosh, why did I do this, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, and then we don't like that feeling, right? Of course we don't. This shame and feeling, why did I do that? So then we just go distract ourselves with something else. But if you can take even just a few moments, like, oh, here's that regret. Oh my goodness, I'm never going to get out of this. Why did I do that? I know better, I'm doing it. And just all the mean things we can say to ourselves. If you can allow yourself to feel that in a way that doesn't tip you over into overwhelm, but you can feel the real yuckiness of it. Just really feel that, like, oh yeah, this is awful. I don't know why I do this. And then do something so that you don't get stuck there. So then do something else, whatever that might be. Hopefully something that's wise and supportive. Because the mind and the body will learn, it doesn't want to feel that yuckiness. So it will just start saying, oh yeah, I don't want to do this because it's going to lead to that terrible feeling. But we can't talk ourselves into it. I mean, if you could talk yourself into it, you wouldn't do it. You would just say, yeah, I'm going to stop at this. But there's a way in which the mind and the body has to recognize, oh yeah, this leads to suffering. It leads to real discomfort. So we have to allow ourselves to feel that discomfort, which is exactly what we don't want to do. So this is maybe why there's some effort here.
I see. So it's like I really have to experience how bad it feels, so then I guess I'll learn how bad it feels, and maybe I'll learn not to do that again. Or
Yeah.
got it.
But to experience it, but not in a way that, is overwhelming or throws you off for days or something like this. Just the way, like, yeah, this is kind of terrible, actually. So,
Thank you. I'm like, that could be a hard balance to strike.
yeah.
If it's overwhelming, I'm like, oh, that's even more terrible. Does that mean it's more effective?
No, because this, when you're in overwhelm, you have the wisdom just is not available, and you're just in overwhelm, and that's not where we're going. That's not what this practice is about. So the practice is about, like finding our way with what's helpful and what's not helpful. So to help us abandon those things that aren't helpful, but we find ourselves doing them, we have to really, like, not just intellectually, but really understand this is not helpful. So if you find yourself like, oh my gosh, this is awful, why did I do that? Then I would say, feel your feet on the ground. Like, just really be present. Feel your feet on the ground. Whatever you're sitting on, feel the pressure against the body. Bring your attention to the sensations of breathing. So this way, you stay here in the present and think like, wow, okay, I have regret that I did that. That's uncomfortable. And you don't have to do it for very long. Just, I don't know, a few minutes. And then get up and do something else.
So if I'm understanding it correctly, it's like instead of like feeling a full image, just like ground myself a little bit and feel a little bit of it, and then I guess hopefully we get more comfortable with it with time.
And with time, you'll stop doing that and you won't have that experience. But also, I would say so much about this practice is just increasing our capacity to be with discomfort. Discomfort's a part of life, and it's amazing how much we bounce off of it trying to do anything but that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Okay, I went 2 minutes over. I hope you'll forgive me here, but thank you for your patience. And wishing you a wonderful rest of the evening and safe travels home. Thank you.